Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's get started.
Gravitas, co-presented by
SBI Mutual Fund, a partner for life.
Chemistry That Matters, SABIC. Co-powered by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist. Driven by Kia Sonet, wild by design.
When we first started reporting on the Wuhan virus, the world showed little interest. It was then a mysterious flu in one city in China. As it spread the world over, the full horror revealed itself. We've seen death and suffering in the last few months, lives and livelihoods being lost. A once-in-a-century catastrophe, they say. The shock value has eroded, though. We've moved to other things. Another COVID death does not evoke the same response. We've seen so many of them. Human beings, adapt. They learn to live with crises too. But this one is not easing. It is intensifying. So we want you to look at the numbers again, the rising curves and the death toll. 1 million dead the world over and counting. There is a second wave. Another round of lockdowns in Europe. On Gravitas tonight, we discuss how pandemic fatigue and pandemic denial is something we cannot afford just yet, and how the world can't lose sight of an important and urgent task, making China pay for perpetrating this misery on the world. We'll discuss. Also on the show, Donald Trump paid just $750 in tax, $750 in tax returns in 2016. A bombshell report exposes the US president's tax avoidance. We'll bring you the details, the reactions and the implications. Armenia and Azerbaijan clash over a disputed region. Turkey deploys fighter jets. Russia backs Armenia. A flare-up here could disrupt global oil supplies. In Pakistan, another opposition leader has been targeted. Former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's brother Shehbaz Sharif arrested in a money laundering case. And in Japan, another actress found dead after a spate of celebrity suicides. The government tells people to seek help if they cannot cope with the pandemic. We begin as always with Gravitas Global Headlines.
Hours before it was to come into effect, a U.S. federal judge halted a politically charged ban ordered by the Trump administration on downloads of the popular video app TikTok. Trump's order had sought to ban new downloads of the app from Sunday midnight. China is holding new military exercises in the South China Sea amid an uptick in tensions between the Asian giant and its Asian neighbors and the United States. The Maritime Safety Administration issued a pair of announcements blocking off seas around the area of the exercises running through Monday, but gave no additional detail. Anti-Lukashenko protests in Belarus have turned violent. Masked policemen dragged people into vans and fired stun grenades and tear gas to disperse crowds as thousands of Belarusians march to demand Lukashenko's resignation. Sri Lanka has shipped back to Britain container loads of waste brought into the island in violation of international laws governing the shipping of hazardous material. The 21 containers holding up to 260 tons of rubbish were meant to carry used mattresses, carpets and rugs, but had also contained hospital waste. 2 new wildfires grew by nearly 10,000 acres in a day in California, where more than 3.6 million acres have burned this year. Fueled by dry conditions and high winds, the Zog fire in Shasta County and the Glass fire further south in Napa County had torched 7,000 and 2,500 acres respectively. Beijing authorities have ordered importers to avoid frozen food from countries suffering severe coronavirus outbreaks. The decision arrives after several incidents of imported seafood testing positive for the virus. German Chancellor Angela Merkel met Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny while he was undergoing treatment in Berlin. In a press conference, Merkel's spokesperson confirmed that the visit to Navalny was personal. No other details of the meeting have been disclosed yet. On a remote Arctic glacier, Greenpeace campaigners projected a video calling on global heads of state to take climate change seriously.
Climate activists around the world will be waiting for you to join the call.
The video shows a huge 30-meter glacier chunk falling off and crashing into the sea. Newly crowned US Open champion Dominic Thiem brushed aside the challenge of 2014 US Open champion Marin Cilic as he won his French Open opener in straight sets. Thiem, a finalist in 2018 and 2019, exchanged breaks with Cilic in the opening games of the first set and then broke again in the 9th game before coming from love 40 down to take the opening set. The Austrian went on a 5-game run from there, and 2 breaks of serve handed him a 2-sets-to-love lead. Cilic didn't have too much left in the tank after that and committed 12 unforced errors as Thiem carved out a 6-4, 6-3, 6-3 win in 2 hours and 6 minutes. Barcelona thrashed Villarreal 4-0 in Ronald Koeman's first competitive match in charge of the Catalan Giants. Koeman named a starting 11 that included the likes of Lionel Messi, Antoine Griezmann and Philippe Coutinho for their opening game of the league season. But it was 17-year-old Ansu Fati who stole the headlines. He scored twice in the opening 20 minutes and then won a penalty which was converted by captain Lionel Messi. An own goal before the interval completed the scoring.
More than 6 million infections, more than 1 million deaths. The Wuhan virus pandemic is set to enter its 10th month. It's been a 10-month-long nightmare and it shows no sign of ending. Quite the opposite, in fact. The world is bracing for a second wave and struggling with pandemic denial and pandemic fatigue. What does that even mean? Pandemic denial, as the term suggests, is people still insisting that this is just a flu, it's a hoax, it's an exaggeration. Yes, there are still some people who believe this. Pandemic fatigue is much more prevalent and dangerous. It means people being tired of a catastrophe, people lowering their defenses because they're tired of being careful. They say life must go on. How long can you halt everything? So lockdowns were lifted, people started stepping out, they returned to office, they went back to malls, gyms, temples, restaurants. We told ourselves that we've learned to live with the virus and that this is the new normal. But 2020 is not over yet, and I'm afraid there is more bad news. This virus is not slowing down. A second wave is coming and more restrictions are in the offing. Let's show you the numbers. The United States, still the most number of cases in this country the world over, more than 7 million cases now. Over 200,000 people have died, 2 lakh people dead in the US. The Wuhan virus continues to spread. According to a report, 4 states in the Midwest have reported a daily spike for the second week in a row. These are Minnesota, Montana, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. Then we come to Europe. It doesn't look good there. This is where the situation is the most worrisome. Earlier this year, Europe was among the worst hit. Now it is witnessing a second wave. For 10 days now, France has been reporting more than 10,000 cases daily. There has been a steep rise in the Netherlands too. Since last Monday, it has been setting a new record in infections every day. Spain, it's the worst hit Western European country with more than 7 lakh cases now, 700,000. The United Kingdom has imposed local lockdowns again. Restrictions there will last probably another 6 months. India does not have a second wave yet because India is still struggling to contain the first one. There is no doubt that India is the new global epicenter of this pandemic. Today, India's case tally passed 6 million. 6 million cases. The death toll is inching closer to 1,100,000. More than 5 million people have recovered in India, but there are concerns about a possible gap in testing, so the actual figures could be much higher with more asymptomatic cases. The bottom line is this: the pandemic is not ending anytime soon. 3 reasons why. Number 1, opening up. It is exposing more people to the Wuhan virus. Look at Europe, the US, India. The moment the restrictions were lifted, the number of cases spiked. Take the case of India. It took 7 months for India to reach the 2 million mark, 2 million cases, 7 months. But India went from 5 to 6 million in just 12 days. Part of it is because of increased testing, but most of it is because of the lifting of lockdown. Reason number 2, no herd immunity. When a large part of a population catches a disease and develops a natural immunity to the disease, we call it herd immunity. This is when enough people catch the disease or when they have received vaccines for it. For the Wuhan virus, herd immunity could possibly be achieved when 50% of the population is immune. Some say the immunity levels must be around 70%, but the world is nowhere close to this. Even America, with the highest number of cases, does not have herd immunity. According to a study, fewer than 10% of Americans show signs of past infection. What about India? The Indian Health Minister today said that we are far from having achieved any kind of herd immunity. And now the third and the final reason why we are nowhere close to the end of this pandemic. Even after 10 months, we do not have a vaccine or a viable treatment. More than 170 teams of researchers the world over are working on a vaccine. But they need more time. Going by even the most optimistic predictions, widespread vaccination will only be possible by mid-2021. Months away. That is, if we get a vaccine that works. America's top disease expert, Anthony Fauci, wants the world to have realistic expectations. He says we still don't know what the efficacy of the vaccine might be. Efficacy is the ability of a vaccine to produce a desired or intended result. Now, Indian drug regulators want a vaccine with an efficacy of at least 50%. Only then will it be given regulatory approval, and no one is offering such a vaccine yet. So at the risk of sounding pessimistic, I must repeat, this virus is not going away in a hurry, so keep your masks on, maintain social distancing, you know the rules, don't let your guard down. Pandemic fatigue and pandemic denial can be fatal. And I keep coming back to the point of denial because there are way too many people out there who refuse to see the seriousness of the situation. And these are people in the most developed of cities. They say the virus is just another flu, it will go away. One such man is the President of America, but you'd be surprised how many agree with him the world over. So as governments impose restrictions again, protesters are out on the streets. Here's a report.
This is London's famous Trafalgar Square, where hundreds of protesters gathered over the weekend. What's their grouse? Another round of restrictions. Britain is bracing for a second wave of the Wuhan virus. And the British don't like the idea of another lockdown. So they're out on the streets.
I mean, at the end of the day, the death rate is the same as the flu, basically. We don't act like this for a flu. I don't go around my mum's house if she's got cancer and I've got the flu.
The Wuhan virus is not the flu. The US president tried to call it that. And look where America is. Donald Trump said he lied to Americans to stop the fear-mongering.
But before I begin, I want to...
The British government is being banned because they're not lying. Protesters say the government is exploiting their fears.
The nuclear option that Boris Johnson is keen to avoid, but it's looking like another national lockdown might be in the cards for Britain if the spread of COVID-19 doesn't slow down.
What's worse, there's no solution in sight. No guarantee of immunity yet. No known treatment, no vaccine. These are the facts that the deniers choose to ignore. Last month, Berlin witnessed a similar protest when the Angela Merkel government decided to tighten the restrictions. The local police said that more than 18,000 people were part of this anti-lockdown protest. And now Spain has become the latest European country to campaign against the lockdown. People in Madrid are demanding a different approach. The government's appeals are falling on deaf ears.
We must see the data for Madrid. When I say that the health of its citizens is at risk, I'm not saying it for rhetorical purposes. I'm saying it because it is. There is a set of data that indicates it. The accumulated incidents in 14 days in this region, the hospital pressure, the lethality and the growth of cases that we are seeing. We must act with determination. We must take control of the pandemic in Madrid.
Israel has now recorded more than 200,000 cases. But that didn't stop this protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The police dumped social distancing rules to handcuff this protester, as many others stood outside Netanyahu's residence to protest. For more than a week now, the world has been reporting more than 300,000 new cases every day. But there's no convincing the deniers. Even after 10 months of global suffering, they want no restrictions, no masks, no social distancing. This virus of denial cannot be a coping mechanism to fight the pandemic. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
So it's been almost 10 months since the Wuhan virus pandemic changed the course of our lives. So far, 1 million people have died. Multiple countries have been pushed into recession. 100 million people are facing the risk of extreme poverty. There is a threat to global development. From education to tourism, everything has come to a standstill. It's being compared to a world war. So what are we doing to punish the perpetrator, the exporter of this virus? Should it not compensate for the damage, for putting our futures at risk, for endangering lives and livelihoods? Let me ask you something. Every time an individual or a group attacks peace, how do we respond? We hold them accountable. We try to punish them. We try to make them compensate. Now, this virus is the biggest threat to peace and life on earth. What have we done? Let me give you more examples. On the 11th of September 2001, Al-Qaeda terrorists carried out attacks in New York and Washington, D.C. 2,977 people were killed. The U.S. responded by declaring a war on terror. Airstrikes on Al-Qaeda training camps followed. In 2011, Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden was hunted and killed. He was made to pay for his crimes. Now, I'm not saying start another war or drop bombs, but if justice was pursued for the killing of 3,000 odd people, why isn't it a priority for the death of 1 million? Do they not deserve justice? Let's say this is not a deliberate act. Let's say it was an accident, a virus leak, or just a pandemic about which China continued to lie. This too is criminal. In 2011, an accident at Japan's Fukushima nuclear plant killed 573 people. It was the second deadliest nuclear accident in history. The company running the Fukushima nuclear plant was asked to pay damages worth 500 million yen. In 1998, American company Owens Corning Corporation was told to pay $1.2 billion for causing cancer. That's because 200,000 people claimed that the company's asbestos building material was causing cancer. In 1984, the Bhopal gas tragedy killed 3,000 people. The Union Carbide Corporation was slapped with a settlement amount of $470 million. The perpetrators are always asked to pay. Let me give you more recent examples. The Mauritius oil spill, a Japanese ship leaking more than 1,000 tons of fuel into the sea. Guess who is paying for the ecological disaster? The owner of the ship. The Beirut blast in August, more than 190 people were killed, thousands of homes and businesses devastated. Lebanon is being made to pay for it. The president has signed a decree allocating 100 billion Lebanese pounds, or more than $66 million, as compensation. The port blast damaged 19,000 businesses. The Wuhan virus has permanently shut down countless businesses. Millions of others have been affected. Do these business owners not deserve compensation? They do. And China needs to pay them. Not holding China accountable will be setting a wrong example. It would mean any rogue country can start a war, any country can get away with criminal negligence, kill millions of people and businesses, and walk away with full impunity. This is not how the global justice system works. Now for our daily segment on the US election. 36 days to go and a tax bomb has struck Donald Trump's re-election campaign. The president of the world's largest economy is being accused of consistently failing to pay his dues to the income tax department. How true are these allegations? How much trouble do they spell for Donald Trump? In the next 4 minutes, we shall try to understand this. I'll start from the beginning. The New York Times released a report this Sunday. It's called The President's Taxes. An exhaustive summary of Trump's long-concealed financial records that show years of alleged tax avoidance, more than 2 decades at least. Let me break down the most crucial allegations from an ordinary taxpayer's point of view. How do you understand this? According to the report, Donald Trump paid no federal income tax in 11 of the 18 years that have been examined. Donald Trump is said to have got tax write-offs on most of his business expenses in these 18 years. This includes tax deductions on his residence, meals, aircraft, travel expenses, even the cost of haircuts. This is very interesting. The report says that at least $70,000 that were paid to style his hair during The Apprentice had been written off. $70,000. Besides this, at least 9 Trump entities reportedly wrote off at least $95,000 paid to Ivanka Trump's hairstylist. In 2016, the year Trump ran for president, he is said to have paid only $750 in federal income tax. In 2017, Trump's first year at the White House, he apparently paid the same amount in tax, $750. How did he manage to do all of this? By reporting losing much more money than he was making. As simple as that. In 2018, Donald Trump claimed $47.4 million in losses. Now, the report says this is despite the U.S. president making $434 million in profits. This was mentioned in a financial disclosure the very same year. $434 million. The report cites Donald Trump's tax payments in foreign countries to underscore his manipulation of finances. His businesses are said to have paid substantially more taxes abroad, and this includes more than $15,000 in Panama, more than $156,000 in the Philippines, more than $145,000 in India, which is, by the way, home to the largest overseas operations of the Trump organization. So how is the US president reacting to such explosive revelations or allegations, whichever way you see it? Is he planning to release his tax returns to set the record straight? Listen to what he said.
It's fake news. It's totally fake news. Made up, fake. We went through the same stories. You could have asked me the same questions 4 years ago. I had to litigate this and talk about it. Totally fake news. Now, actually, I paid tax. And you'll see that as soon as my tax returns. It's under audit. They've been under audit for a long time. The IRS does not treat me well. They treat me like the Tea Party, like they treated the Tea Party. They don't treat me well. They treat me very badly. You have people in the IRS, they treat me very, very badly. but they're under audit. And when they're not, I would be proud to show it, but that's just fake news. The New York Times tried it, the same thing. They want to create a little bit of a story, they're doing anything they can. Not only that's the least of it. I mean, the stories that I read are so fake, they're so phony.
They're fake, they're phony, they don't treat me well. Well, how about releasing the tax returns to prove them wrong? Donald Trump has asked this question yet again, and he said he can't do it yet because they're under audit.
Well, first of all, I paid a lot, and I paid a lot of state income taxes, too. The New York State charges a lot, and I paid a lot of money in state. It'll all be revealed. It's going to come out. But after the audit is, they're doing their assessment. We've been negotiating for a long time. Things get settled, like in the IRS. But right now, when you're under audit, you don't do it. You don't do that. So we're under audit, but the story is a total fake.
The story is a total fake, says Donald Trump. It might be. The US president has always been the best judge. But I must show you something. Headlines from May 2019. Donald Trump himself acknowledging taking massive tax write-offs for real estate losses in the mid-1980s all the way up to the 1990s. He called it a sport, a trend among business developers like himself during that period. And that says a lot about the kind of businessman Donald Trump has been. In other news, the US presidential debates are just 2 days away. We'll bring you the latest on that. For the moment, let's talk about what's brewing on this side of the globe. There's another war on the horizon, one that could disrupt global oil supplies and worsen the economic crisis. The countries involved are Armenia and Azerbaijan, not your regular newsmakers, but they've had their share of disputes. This fight, as always, is over a piece of land. Drones, air power and missiles have been deployed. At least 30 people have died in the last 2 days. Regional powers, Russia and Turkey, have picked their sides. Several countries are calling for a ceasefire. This flare-up between two former Soviet republics, as I said, could disrupt global oil and gas supplies. Here's a report.
This morning, the armed forces of Armenia, using various types of weapons, including heavy artillery, fired on our settlements, as well as military positions from several directions.
Azerbaijan and Armenia are on a brink of full-scale war. It's day 2 of the clashes, and the flare-up is over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. This 4,400 square kilometer region is inside Muslim Azerbaijan. Internationally, it is recognized as part of Azerbaijan, but is mostly inhabited by Christian Armenians. The region declared independence in 1991, and it is now governed by ethnic Armenians, who call it the Independent Republic of Artsakh. Armenia and Azerbaijan have blamed each other for attacking the Nagorno-Karabakh region on Sunday. Air power, missiles and heavy armor have been used. Over 30 people have died, and human rights activists say an Armenian mother and her child were among those killed. The two former Soviet republics have not had the most peaceful history. They fought a war and signed a ceasefire in 1994. Since then, they've accused each other of violating that ceasefire. This region's stability is very crucial to the world. It is a corridor for pipelines carrying oil and gas from the Caspian Sea to world markets. The latest flare-up has reignited concerns about instability in the South Caucasus. Regional powers Russia and Turkey have already been dragged in. A full-fledged blame game is on. Armenia has blamed Turkey for fanning the conflict. Turkey has been accused of deploying F-16s and troops to fight Armenians. You see, Azerbaijanis are predominantly Turkic people, and the country has Turkey's emphatic support. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan took to Twitter to call Armenia the biggest threat to peace and stability in the region. Ally Pakistan has extended its support for Azerbaijan's quote-unquote right to self-defense. Russia, a traditional ally of Armenia, called for an immediate ceasefire. The European Union has warned against foreign interference. France, which is home to a large Armenian community, has called for dialogue. Iran has offered to broker peace talks. The Pope too has spoken out.
There have been worrying reports about clashes in the Caucasus. I pray for peace in the Caucasus and ask the parties in the conflict to make concrete gestures of goodwill and brotherhood.
2 days of fighting later, here's where the situation stands. Azerbaijan's president says he is confident of regaining control over the Nagorno-Karabakh region, but the territory, along with Armenia, has declared martial law. All sides are preparing for the worst. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
We've often told you about China's human rights violations against the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, a prison masquerading as a province, with police on every corner of the street, checkpoints every few kilometers, concentration camps, political indoctrination, public execution, and state-sanctioned rape. China's crimes against the Uyghurs are countless, and the proof is overwhelming. But Xi Jinping says that happiness is on the rise in this region of China, an outrageous justification of his regime's inhumane actions. Here's a report.
After lying about China's intentions at the United Nations,
we have no intention to fight either a cold war or a hot one with any country.
After misleading the world on China's growing belligerence,
China will continue to work as a builder of global peace, a contributor to global development, and a defender of international law and international order.
Xi Jinping is now justifying his regime's human rights violations in Xinjiang. The Chinese president says that happiness is on the rise in the world's most surveilled region. According to the state-run Xinhua news agency, the remarks were made at a Communist Party conference held in Beijing last week. Xi Jinping has been quoted as saying, "The sense of gain, happiness and security among the people of all ethnic groups in Xinjiang has continued to increase. Practice has shown that the party's strategy for governing Xinjiang in the new era is completely correct. It has become necessary to educate Xinjiang's population and guide all ethnic groups on establishing a correct perspective on the country, history, and nationality. This may be just the most outrageous justification for state-sponsored crimes in Xinjiang. And it comes at a time when reports of new Uyghur detention centers are spreading on the internet. According to the Xinjiang Data Project, China has built nearly 380 new internment camps since 2017. With the construction of dozens more fortified prisons currently underway, the camps are mostly located near factory complexes. The detainees are being subjected to forced labor. Their families are fighting for justice.
My family is held hostage in Chinese concentration camp. My brother is forced to assemble phone chargers as a slave labor. Your charger may be among them. 3 million Uyghurs being detained in concentration camps. Imagine the population of Berlin or Chicago locked up as slaves.
These voices are not going unheard. The Chinese regime is being rebuked by the world.
A state that tries to hold itself above any kind of scrutiny presents a fundamental threat to human rights.
There is compelling evidence, including from the Chinese authorities' own documents, of systematic human rights violations.
We are particularly alarmed at human rights violations in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region.
The statements condemning China are strong, but they may once again fail to yield any concrete results. The 75th UN General Assembly session will conclude in the next 24 hours. A resolution condemning China's atrocities against the Uyghurs remains a distant dream. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
We've been bringing you stories on the political upheaval that is underway in Pakistan. The opposition has launched a campaign to dethrone Imran Khan. We told you how Nawaz Sharif, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, has emerged from political hibernation. How he has been leading this campaign all the way from London. So far, the Imran Khan government maintained absolute silence on the opposition's efforts. But now the political crackdown has begun. Shehbaz Sharif, the brother of Nawaz Sharif and the leader of opposition in Pakistan, has been put behind bars. He was arrested by Pakistan's National Accountability Bureau earlier today. The arrest took place right after the Lahore High Court rejected Shehbaz Sharif's bail plea in a $41 million money laundering case. The 69-year-old opposition leader was taken into custody directly from the court's premises. His party members are protesting. Maryam Nawaz, PMLN Vice President, is calling the arrest a witch hunt. She says Shehbaz Sharif's arrest is because his only crime is that he refused to play in the hands of those who wanted to use him against his brother. Take a look.
शहबाज शरीफ ने सरतोड़ कोशिशों के बावजूद अपने भाई का साथ नहीं छोड़ा। पाकिस्तान में प्लीज अगर कोई कानून है, कोई इंसाफ है या कोई सेम्बलेंस ऑफ कानून या इंसाफ है, तो फिर गिरफ्तारी शहबाज शरीफ की नहीं होनी चाहिए थी, फिर गिरफ्तारी जनरल आसिम सलीम बाजवा की होनी चाहिए थी।
The opposition in Pakistan is anticipating more arrests. They say the National Accountability Bureau has issued notices to several opposition leaders. The timing of these arrests and notices tell you what the Imran Khan government has on its mind. It wants to put an end to opposition protests even before they begin. Remember, almost all major opposition parties in Pakistan have established a grand political alliance to take on Imran Khan. They have launched the Pakistan Democratic Movement, a civil disobedience movement to dethrone the Prime Minister. The protests are expected to begin next month. From lawyers and journalists to farmers and traders, almost everybody is expected to hit the streets. Nawaz Sharif has urged his supporters to not be deceived by such quote-unquote clever tactics. He says the decisions made at the all-party conference will be implemented and the protests will go on as planned. Protest or no protest, some turbulent times lie ahead for the political landscape of Pakistan, and we'll be tracking those developments for you here on Gravitas. For the moment, let's turn to what's happening in the UK. Fictional MI6 agent James Bond has the license to kill. Real-life agents could soon have one too. According to reports, the United Kingdom could provide its spies and Secret Service agents the legal protection to commit, quote-unquote, necessary crimes. What are those crimes? They haven't spelled that. Our next report has more.
James Bond. License to kill.
James Bond has the license to kill. And he has never been shy to use it.
Only your skills die with your body.
In just 24 movies, 007 has killed 597 people.
History isn't kind to men who play God.
Some were shot, some killed with spa equipment. But this is all movies and fiction. Real-life British agents are not Bond, and they do not have the license to kill. The former boss of MI5 once said, assassination, quote-unquote, is not part of the policy of Her Majesty's government. This may soon be history. The United Kingdom is mulling a new law. One that could arm British spies with license to kill and commit necessary crimes. What crimes? The Covert Human Intelligence Sources Bill does not explain. But what justifies this license to kill? Reports say the idea is to take on spies, saboteurs and hackers from countries like Russia, North Korea and Iran. In 2019, a British court ruled that MI5 spies can kill in the line of duty. And they would not be prosecuted. That is, unless they fail to justify the killing. Human rights groups were not happy with this. They said the move could authorize killing on British soil. So are we to believe that spies do not kill at all? Of course they do. Just that the files are brushed under the carpet and most countries do not have laws justifying these killings. In 2018, Australia was mulling arming its spies with a license to kill. The CIA was given the license to kill after the attacks of 9/11. The poisoning of Sergei and Yulia Skripal in Salisbury in 2018. Wasn't it a case of Russian spies exercising their license to kill? A report says Israel's Mossad has killed more people than the agents of any other country since the Second World War. The number stands at 800 plus. Are these cases of assassination or self-defense? Or are the spies killing people to safeguard their country? The license to kill is often justified with one question. Who will guard the guardians? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
One of the world's most ancient towns now lies underwater. The town of Hasankeyf in Turkey's southeastern corner is rich with history. It offers scholars a window into 12,000 years of human occupation. But the construction of a controversial dam, one of President Erdogan's pet projects, erased the town's bustling life.
The small town of Hasankeyf is considered a jewel by archaeologists. Located on the Tigris River in southeastern Turkey, the town has barely changed over centuries. It was once a popular stopover on the Silk Road trade route. Hasankeyf witnessed minimal development between the 17th and 19th centuries. Its residents were a blend of Arab, Kurdish and Turkish descent. Hasankeyf offered a crucial glimpse into 12,000 years of human occupation. And now, it is a town underwater. Ever since the Turkish government activated the hydroelectric Ilisu Dam on the Tigris River, waters have overflown into abandoned neighborhoods and shops. While Turkish President Erdogan had hailed the Ilisu Dam as a magnificent project aimed at bringing electricity to an underdeveloped region, activists believe that precious history could be lost as the town goes underwater. Not to forget the environmental repercussions. And the once popular tourist destination has now become a ghost town.
The project is really great, but the reality is that we have water problems, really serious water problems, electric problems, infrastructure problems. The streets are all, you must have seen, you cannot walk on them because of stones and pits. The sewers are blocked. We're asking the officials to fix this.
There were many people who came to see Hasankeyf before it was underwater. They wanted to see it before this happened. We hope that after it is now underwater, people will come to see it the way it is now. But after seeing the way it is now, I wonder, will they find what they are looking for? For example, there is Halfeti in Urfa. The minaret is underwater, the historical houses are underwater, but you can't see the historical structures in the water here because the water is murky and you can't see anything.
This is a vast expanse of an artificial lake which swallowed this historic town. And now the government wants to bring tourism back to Hasankeyf by introducing boat rides, jet skiing and paragliding on this artificial lake. A few remnants of Hasankeyf's rich heritage, such as a 1,600-ton Artuklu Hammam bathhouse and a museum, have survived. Yet with coronavirus killing tourism prospects, hopes of a revival remain slim.
There is no reason for people to come here. If after destroying this place you wait for tourists, I believe it is foolishness. They won't come. And they would be right not to come. I agree with that. Hasankeyf has a 12,000-year-old history. If there is no history left, there is no sense in coming here.
Even as construction in this ancient town gets off to a creaky start, it is unclear if Hasankeyf will regain its lost glory. And the loss of Hasankeyf could very well be the loss of a crucial chapter in our history. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The suicide of Japanese actor Yuko Takeuchi has once again started the conversation about the country's high suicide rates. Did you know that 5 prominent Japanese actors, including a 22-year-old Netflix star, have taken their lives in the last 5 months? At least 1,900 people killed themselves in Japan in August alone. What explains these numbers? Our next report explores.
On Sunday, Japan was taken aback with the news of actor Yuko Takeuchi's suicide. The actor was found dead at her home. She was only 40. And that was not the first in her profession to have taken his or her life in the recent months. On the 20th of September, 80-year-old actor Takashi Fujiki was found dead in his home. The Japanese media reported that Fujiki had left a suicide note. He said he had no confidence to continue acting. Earlier this month, actor Sei Ashina died by alleged suicide. The actor was only 36. In July, actor Haruma Miura was found hanging in his home. And 2 months before that, Netflix star Hana Kimura was found dead. Media reports claim her apparent suicide was driven by cyberbullying. What explains these horror stories? Is this unique to the entertainment industry alone? Not really. Japan has a very high suicide rate. The country reported nearly 1,900 suicides in August. This is up 15% year on year. At least 20,169 people took their own lives in 2019. This is according to the country's national police agency. What explains these numbers? Experts say it's got a lot to do with Japan's attitude towards suicide. This Japan Today article quotes anthropologist Emiko Onuki-Tierney. He says in Japan, suicide is elevated to the level of an aesthetic experience. Combine this with Japan's attitude to shame job loss and failure. There are also other factors, mental health being probably the biggest one. In recent times, internet suicide pranks have also played a big role. In 2020, the pandemic became one of the biggest suicide drivers. The government has now asked people to reach out and ask for help if they cannot cope. It's a silent pandemic that needs serious attention. Bureau Report, WION. World is one.
That's a message, I guess, not just for Japan, for the world, but for the rest of the world too. If you feel you cannot cope, do reach out. We're wrapping up this edition of Gravitas on that note, leaving you with Gravitas Images. Thanks for watching.